All right,
I
welcome back.
got
So
kicked
now we
out.
need to start the webinar.
Okay, let's see if it kicks me out this time. Like I'm still here. That's a good
It says the
sign.
webinar has started.
Okay, I'm gonna hit, oh, cancel that. Okay.
We're recording and we're live. Perfect.
Okay, here we go. Well, welcome everyone. We're gonna wait for some more folks to pop on, but all seems to be well.
I see all the attendees coming in.
Welcome everyone. Happy Friday. Man, I hope we get some really warm sunshine today. That ice was just killing me yesterday.
Yeah, that was not good. So Joelle, I don't know how long you want to wait, but I mean.
Are you ready to get started? I am.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, well, welcome everyone. Welcome to today's community ed discussion. This is called Supporting Veterans During Life-Changing Conditions. So today we have two veterans from our Central Oregon community, Maureen Dooley, our very own Partners in Care Veteran Outreach Coordinator and Marine Corps veteran, and Don Deland, VP of Honor Flight Central Oregon and Navy veteran. Thank you both so much for joining us today. I'd like to hear from each of you a little more about your background, if you can share that with our audience. Don, you want to go first?
Hi. Good afternoon. My name is Don Deland. I'm a U.S. Navy Vietnam veteran. I did 2 tours in Vietnam with Attack Squadron 112 aboard the USS Kitty Hawk and the USS Ticonderoga, working on A4 Skyhawks. I'm a member of the VFW Post 4108 and the American Legion Post 44 in Redmond, as well as the Redmond Band of Brothers. I'm also the Vice President and Board Member of Honor Flight of Central Oregon, and I'm the Honor Guard Captain for both the VFW Post 4108 and American Legion Post 44 in Redmond. So we do the military honors funerals, the greater Redmond area. We also maintain a listing of all the veterans in 5 different cemeteries around Redmond, and place flags during Memorial Day, and we place wreaths during on December for Wreaths Across America. And then I also participate in pinning ceremonies for Hospice of Redmond whenever they have a veteran that's in hospice care.
Maureen? Thank you.
So I've worked very closely with Don over the past couple of years. I served in the United States Marine Corps for 10 years following college. And I was a public affairs officer who deployed overseas to Afghanistan. And then I got out of the military service and started working here in the local Central Oregon community. First, actually, with Hospice of Redmond, which is where I met Don and started working with the Honor Guard there. And now I have the pleasure of working with Partners in Care as not only Veterans Outreach Coordinator, but Communications Director as well. And it's very important to me, this topic of working with all the Central Oregon veterans organizations and supporting veterans who do have life-changing conditions.
Excellent. Well, I'd like to get started. I have a question, but if anyone in our audience today has questions, please feel free to use the Q&A feature, and at the end we will we'll read those questions off. So first, I'll kick it off. Maureen, I'd like to first ask, how does Partners in Care work with all of the other veteran organizations in Central Oregon? There are so many.
Yeah, there are so many here. We are a pretty, I would say, small community. But Partners in Care does cover a 10,000 square mile radius. So we serve people who are on hospice as well as home health, and some of our other programs as well. And we cover from Christmas Valley to Gilcrest and Lapine, all the way through Bend and Redmond up to Madras and Prineville. And so we do cover a very large area. And Central Oregon does have a very, very high population of veterans and veterans organizations. And I know Don will talk about this at length as well, but I think right now, and correct me if I'm wrong, Don, we have over 700 World War II 1,200 Korean War, and over 7,000 Vietnam War veterans, of which Don is one, living in Central Oregon. And that's just the older population. That doesn't even count my generation of veterans. And, just this morning I was talking to another female Marine Corps veteran who's lived here for 11 years, who's really never gotten involved with veterans organizations. And so, it's important to me because Partners in Care does serve such a large population and square miles that in my position, I work closely with all of those smaller community and city veterans organizations from, the Band of Brothers. There's one in each city here. There's Prineville, there's Sisters in Redmond and Bend, and there's Lapine, and then the VFWs and American Legions. And Central Oregon Veterans Outreach, the Central Oregon Veterans Ranch is one that we work pretty closely with, as well as they're trying to get their adult foster home and end of life program up and running as well. But it's important to us just because we touch such a wide aspect of the community, and a lot of, I would say, the community veterans organizations work really closely in that city, but we are regional. And so I have to work across the region and really closely with all of our service providers, from mental health counseling for veterans to supporting folks like who are houseless, and working with Central Oregon Veterans Outreach and the new Veterans Village they have. But really, it's important to me because of my service and our organization to best support the people that we serve and touch people if they don't know where to turn, asking us for that support and being a resource for them in the community. And I know Don wants to talk specifically about this as well.
Just to dovetail a little bit on what Maureen just said, I just reading a statistic here just the other day that over 70% of the veterans right now are my age or older. I served 52 years ago. So a lot of those are moving into that aspect of their life. I'm 74 years old, so they're in their 70s and 80s and up there. So we're all reaching that age of life. So I was invited on to talk a little bit about Honor Flight. It's a great program. I got involved in it because as the Honor Guard captain, and I've done I'm close to 250 funerals now in 6 years that I've been the Honor Guard captain. So many of those funerals involve older veterans from World War II, Korea, but just like this Wednesday, we did a military honors funeral for someone who's 2 years younger than me. And I'm seeing more and more of that where, it's my age group or sometimes younger that we're doing these for. So Honor Flight, I moved up into Honor Flight so I could start working with veterans before they reached that stage where I was dealing with them as an Honor Guard. And it was created in 2018. We're one of 4 hubs. Honor Flight is a national network. So there's 44 states have hubs that take veterans to Washington, D.C. so they can see all the memorials and the monuments that were built in their honor. Some of these veterans have never had a chance to go see that from where they live. So we are the only hub east of the Cascades. So we primarily look at Deschutes and Jefferson and Crook County, but we also take veterans from all the eastern side because they have no other flight available to them. So they'll get a hold of us, and we'll hold some seats so we can always take veterans from Eastern. We just took a World War II veteran from Baker City on this last flight with us. So that was pretty cool. We're an all volunteer nonprofit organization. So we currently are taking anyone who served the era of World War II, Korea, or Vietnam. So basically from the 40s into 1975, that have not had a chance to go back there and see these memorials. And we take them free of charge because we fundraise so that we can, it's no cost to them at all. It's our privilege to take them back there and honor them with that flight. The flight has 3 basic goals: camaraderie, remembrance, and healing. And camaraderie, we bring the veterans together as a group that are going to go on a flight. They all understand from when they served before what it's like to be in a unit and have a mission. So we try to really create that for them so they can bond, talk to each other. Some of them have never talked to their family about what they went through and saw, but they're able to talk to other veterans. So that's part of the camaraderie part of it. And then there's a remembrance of taking them back there. They can see the monuments and the memorials, Vietnam Wall, Korea, World War I, World War II, etc. And also, they get to see that we get an early arrival into the National Archives. We can actually take them to see the Constitution that every one of them raised their hands and took an oath to. So that's also a great part of our trip back there. And then on the healing, some of the healing takes place in Washington, D.C. as they get to the Vietnam Wall or the Korea veteran or World War II memorial. And then also as they talk amongst each other, you see some emotions come out, and some of them have to deal with that. So that's part of our healing. The other part of our healing, and part of the biggest part, and we're hearing more and more from the veterans, that when we come home, we throw a community welcome home celebration. So many of these veterans that when they're in Korea, that was the forgotten war. They just came back and assimilated back into their community. And then Vietnam, that was a pretty rough time in our country. And so a lot of us Vietnam veterans that came back were not treated very well, even though we served and did what we were supposed to do. But we just never got the recognition of actually serving our country. And so we were treated pretty badly. So we wanted to change that and do a community welcome home. So we give them a caravan from the airport. In this case, we went to the fairgrounds. We had all the friends, family, community members met there. There were signs, there was bands, there was everything that we could provide to create a welcome home for them. And for many of them, they said that was the highlight of the trip. So that was pretty cool in that respect. So that's basically what Honor Flight does. And we go once a year, every September, take about 30 to 35 veterans at a time back there. And so it's a great program, and anybody that wants to be involved in that, please get a hold of me.
Do you want me to share some of the photos from this last year, and you can let everyone know kind of what exactly?
Sure, I'm sorry, I forgot about that.
That's okay. You can
kind of see what it's like. Yes,
absolutely. All right.
So this is all of us on the airplane.
And there's you said there's 30 veterans that are taken every year, and veterans even who, we're talking about life-changing conditions. So I know that there are some veterans who do have some of these serious illnesses, correct? And you're trying to get them over there before their end of life. Is that correct, Don?
Yes, that's one of the things we prioritize on. So right now, World War II is the #1 priority, Korea is the #2 priority, and then Vietnam is the #3 priority. But we also take health into consideration when they fill out their application. We take a doctor with us, and the doctor contacts every one of the veterans and checks on their medical conditions and that sort of thing. And so sometimes we do bump veterans up that we think needs to go this year versus next year. And we also have a lot of veterans that turn in their applications that say, if somebody needs to go, bump me to next year, let them go in my place. So that's part of that veteran community that's out there.
Absolutely.
So this is all us. The two ladies here in the yellow shirts, they are actually from Illinois. They actually ran out of veterans to take. They were a hub. And so they had a lot of money. And they actually financed our 2021 trip. They sent us a check for $70,000. And so they actually came up to Washington, D.C. and to go with us on our trip to meet our veterans.
That's amazing. How many people in total end up going every year, Don?
We take 60 people in total. So between the team leads and the gray shirts there, that's basically the board, and the doctors kneeling there right there by the check. And then every veteran that needs a guardian, we take a guardian to assist them. We take wheelchairs and everything. They're the ones that push the wheelchairs, get the wheelchairs and luggage and all that, take care of the veterans. And then about 30 to 35 veterans, they're in the blue shirts there. Those are all veterans that we took.
So, and like you said, this really, as we talk about these life-changing conditions, this really could be one of the first, outside of getting involved in Band of Brothers or VFW or American Legion or things like that, doing Honor Flight really could be one way for someone who is experiencing a life-changing condition or a serious illness to start the, I guess, more emotional healing process,
Right.
vice, physical, but the more emotional healing process of service, correct?
Yes, and again, since we're an all volunteer organization, we are recruiting volunteers for fundraisers and different aspects of it. It takes a lot to put one of these flights together every year, and so we're always looking for help out there. And the community's been just terrific in donating to help send these veterans back there. So,
Here.
they can go on our website, which is honorflightofcentraloregon.org. And
Mhm.
there's in the applications, there's a volunteer application. They can fill that out and send it in. And it asks them, what their skills are. Could be photography, could be fundraising, could be whatever it is.
Mhm.
We work with the school districts and that, so sometimes their expertise is in the schools and all that. So they can fill out an application and actually apply to be a volunteer with our group. So
Okay,
these
and
veterans right here actually looking at the Constitution and the Bill of Rights in the National Archives. Yeah.
that's
That's
amazing.
amazing. That's really amazing.
And then there's the Vietnam Wall. We do this on the first morning of our trip because it's very emotional for a lot of the veterans to go to their memorials, especially Vietnam and Korea. And so we try to that's kind of the low emotional point, you might say, of the trip. So we try to get that out of the way early so we can then do some fun stuff and build them back up before they come home. So a lot of veterans, we spend a lot of time here, as much time as they need actually to go through this.
And you had a veteran on the trip, I think it was not this year, but last year,
Mhm.
who actually found the name of one of his fellow service members on
Yeah,
the wall, correct?
yes, we had two of them. One, he found the name of the person who was killed right in front of him. The only thing that saved him was the enemy's gun jammed. And then we had another veteran he was the sole survivor of 7 on a mission. And so all 6 of the other names were on the wall. And we were there, and I got to give props to the park department too, because there was a colonel there that was doing you can actually get a shading of a name if you want it off of the wall. She stayed there with him for 45 minutes until he could decompress and was ready to function again. So that's what we're there for. That's part of the healing process.
Absolutely. Well, and I think, if anyone joined us for our discussion that we had in May, we were talking a lot about the healing process for veterans at end of life. And I think Honor Flight plays a huge part in that, Don. It's such an important mission. And, I think you see the transformation in your own eyes. I hope that I can go on a trip here sometime in the future
So do we.
as a guardian. But it's something that we see, in hospice at end of life. And for them to be able to do something like this, where they can be there with their, brothers and sisters in arms and go through some of that emotional healing from some of the trauma, I think could be very, very good. And I think more people need to be aware of it and know that this is available. And there's over 7,000 Vietnam War veterans. So you guys definitely
Right.
could have your hands full if everyone tries to come.
And you can just see even in this veteran here, I mean, this was 50, 60 years ago that they've carried, a lot of these veterans just carry that emotion inside them and tuck it away and compartmentalize it. And then they've never let it out, never had a chance to let it out. And this is one of those trips where you're with other veterans and you have a chance to, doesn't matter whether you laugh, whether you cry, what you do, everyone's there to help everyone else. So.
Absolutely.
Wow.
And this is one of the things we do back in that time. There was no internet, there was no text messages or anything like that. So we actually had mail call, and you had to actually write a letter to your veterans. So we have the schools write letters to veterans around Veterans Day, and then we hold those for the next flight. And we make a mail call packet for every veteran. And on our flight home, we have the stewardess call out mail call, and every veteran gets a packet of letters from local students thanking them for their service.
Wow.
You just got a packet of those on this Veterans Day, right, Don?
I did. In fact, I'm going this afternoon to pick up some from Ridgeview High School. Yes.
Great. It's an amazing thing the community does.
And this is here we're at the welcome home. So this is them coming home. Their friends, family, community members are there. And so it's just, they also, Central Oregon Quilting Group, they do a quilt for every one of the veterans, a patriotic quilt for each one of them, and they're presented to them. So it's just, the welcome home is a big part of what they, the healing process that they go through, because this is something they never received when they actually came home 50, 60 years ago. So
Can anyone join the welcome home, or
absolutely,
is it volunteer?
No, it's the whole community. We had people there from La Pine, Madras, Prineville, Redmond, Bend, yeah, from all over. So,
How do we find out about how to show up for this event?
again, it'll be on our website, and there'll
Okay.
be some advertising because we have a great marketing person working with us in Maureen right there. And so we put out posters, and we put it on our website, and we try to get it on the news also, so that we can get as many people there as possible.
Fantastic. I love that each veteran is given a quilt, because my grandmother's a quilter and I know how special and time consuming quilts are. And I know that those are made with love. That is really cool.
I actually got to go to the Sisters Quilt Show for the first time in my life this year because of that. So
Yeah, that's amazing.
yeah.
Yeah, and I know that we do have a video that we weren't able to share here, but that we'll probably put either in the chat or in the information that is sent out on Monday about this, so that you can, watch the video as well. And like Don said, everyone who supports Honor Flight is a volunteer. All of us donate our time and energy to support this cause on top of everyone's daily work and activities, because it's such an important mission. And the person who did the video and does all the photography, very similarly, he goes because he believes in it, and he takes some incredible photos to be able to for these veterans to be able to look at them after. And this really is one of the first steps in that emotional healing process. And I know with Partners in Care, I think Joelle, what we were going to talk about the actual end of life experience, correct?
Yes. Well, that's my burning question. I want to know how you two work together to honor veterans through these life changes, through these life-changing conditions that they experience. Because I know that there's a lot that you both do, and I'm wondering how those intertwine.
Absolutely. So again, as I said before, Don and I met over 3 years ago now, working actually at Hospice of Redmond, and it was something that it was important to me, was being able to recognize and honor these veterans at end of life. And all hospices are part of the National Hospice and Palliative Care Organization. And through that, there's something called the We Honor Veterans program. I will say that even if there wasn't a We Honor Veterans program, I know for a fact that Partners in Care and Hospice of Redmond and many of the other hospices that are in Central Oregon, because of all the veterans here, would still do stuff like this. And for me, it's personal. It's not just part of the job, or because we are required to do this. It's very personal. And so at Partners in Care, we have a transitions program that supports people who have these life-limiting illnesses, who may need access to resources in the community, getting connected with organizations like Covo. Say we're working with a houseless person, getting them into the Veterans Village, working with the VA to get them extra support that they need, and in with their primary care physician to actually get help for whatever this life-limiting illness is. And often those are folks who have about 2 years or less to live, is that program. And I work closely with our transitions coordinators to be able to connect the veterans that are on our service and transitions with support, and often our volunteers too. We have veteran volunteers, and Lloyd, I see you on the attendee list. Thank you to Lloyd, who's one of our veteran volunteers, and also a Marine Corps Vietnam veteran. And it's so important to us to pair up veteran volunteers with our transitions clients as well as our hospice patients, to have that mutual kind of shared connection and understanding and respect, especially if they're from the same, combat era as well. So, and then we also have, our home health program and palliative care, which is kind of the next step in those life-changing conditions and getting support. And we serve veterans on there as well. And then there's obviously hospice, which everyone knows is our end of life care that serves people who have a terminal illness and a diagnosis of 6 months or less to live. And so, I work closely with Dawn, and I started working closely with Dawn primarily to honor veterans at that final stage in hospice. But we work closely together through his honor guard as well. And one of the things that you see here is you can see Don and a few of the representatives from their honor guard at one of our local senior living facilities here in Bend. And there are so many senior living facilities throughout Central Oregon and all of the communities that we serve. And there are veterans in every single one of them. And if COVID wasn't happening and these restrictions weren't here, I think we would have probably tried to go out to almost every single one and honor all of their veterans. A lot of these places, the residents don't have the ability necessarily to get out and be a part of Band of Brothers and be a part of the VFW and actually go into the community and take part in those programs. And so it's important to us to come to them and to honor them and to share some of that camaraderie. And some of these folks may have gone on honor flight, and then we're coming in to be able to continue that connection from veteran to veteran and continue that through the rest of their life, so that it's not just a blip, and that there's that community connection and that camaraderie and that recognition through every stage. So that's what this is showing here. Dawn, I would love for you to talk a little bit about the Wall of Honor, and that's something from Partners in Care. We work closely with Hospice of Redmond, and they do have a Wall of Honor that honors all veterans in Central Oregon. And we're working to get a list together of veterans that we serve and our veteran volunteers to be able to put on that wall to be part of a recognition ceremony. But playing into honoring veterans and facilities in the community, if you could talk a little bit about that, that would be great.
So the Wall of Honor is a wall that's at the Hospice of Redmond here in Redmond. It's to honor all the veterans who have associated with Central Oregon, basically, and some of them are anywhere in Oregon, but most of it is Central Oregon veterans that are on there living or deceased. So in fact, my father, brother, and I are on the wall right now. And then Maureen came to the honor guard, and so we decided that we were going to start a tradition of going every third Wednesday at 4:30 to the wall and play taps in honor of these veterans. So our honor guard goes there at 4:30 and the staff comes out, and sometimes and the public attends, and veterans attend. And then, so we play taps there at the wall every third Wednesday at 4:30. It's just a tradition to honor these veterans that are no longer with us. So.
Absolutely. And that's something too that was happening in these pictures is you can't see him, but Jack Newcomb is hiding behind the POW MIA flag in that picture. And he played taps and it was a incredibly emotional experience. We did this on the Marine Corps birthday, the day before Veterans Day. And for these veterans who were lined up here, it was incredibly emotional for them to hear that played. And some of them may not have heard that played for a very long time, or from their, brothers or sisters' funerals. And so it's always an emotional thing to hear that. But for us, it's important to continue to honor veterans.
And you can kind of see from the pictures, the residents, you can see them up there on the balcony above. They were on the stairway up the balcony. A lot of them did not know that some of these were actually veterans. Some of the men had hats on that said they were a veteran, but a lot of them were surprised that they didn't know their neighbor was a veteran because they just never said anything about it. So this was a good chance to honor them in front of their neighbors. And then they also unveiled a wall of honor there at the Alexander that had all the veterans' names and picture. If they had pictures of them back when they were in the service, those were all placed on the wall. So they now have a special spot at the Alexander there. So it was a great celebration for us to be able to be part of.
Absolutely. And a great celebration, a great time to recognize them. And for us, it's important to get out there in the community and go to these places where these veterans, may not be able to go and have that regular Band of Brother meeting that happens every week. And so we're trying to go to them because it's important. And the last thing we want is for someone to be isolated, especially if they do have a serious illness. And so we want to be a resource for them, and we want them to know that we are here to support them, not only from the medical side as an organization, but also the side of serving them as a veteran and honoring them as a veteran. I will say that I have gotten photo approval from all the families of these individuals in these photos to share these pictures. So this here, another special aspect of what we do and what we work closely with the Honor Guard and Band of Brothers is individually honoring veterans who may be on hospice care. And, we never know how long someone is going to have left to live who is on hospice. And we have our veteran volunteers who go out and they sit with them and they support them. Or just regular volunteers too, who just have a heart for it or had a family member who served, who really just wants to give back. But we try to make it special. And, we're trying to increase that quality of life for whatever time they have left and show them appreciation and honor. And this here is a special gentleman named Don Van Cleve, who served in the Korea War. He's a Marine, Purple Heart recipient who never received his Purple Heart until 68 years after he was wounded. And he actually received it on an honor flight. Don, do you remember him?
I do. I got contact. It's a very interesting story. His son happened to go to a seamstress that does the patches and all that on our uniforms. And she got a hold of me, and I got a hold of him, and went and saw him in band at his home, him and his wife, and got his story. So I was able to he still had the telegram and everything from the general that he was recipient of Purple Heart. So I took all that, was able to take that to Greg Walden's office, and they were able to pull all the strings to actually get him his Purple Heart. I was able to get it back from him before the flight with a little white lie, and then send it. I didn't go on that flight, so I sent it, and actually Greg Walden got to present that back at the World War II Memorial back in Washington, D.C. while he was on the flight. So, and the nice thing about that, I had him write out everything about what happened, that he received the Purple Heart, and he went out to get some more information to the other room, and his wife said, "He's never told me that story. I've never heard any of this." So that was pretty interesting that she got her and his son have never heard the story of what happened there. So that was pretty interesting to get that out.
Yeah, and you do see that a lot. I see that. I hear it. I see it a lot, and that's something we did talk about, during our last discussion in May. Was how can you support people who may have those stories inside, who may not have shared it, and then all of a sudden end of life is when they share it. And obviously Don wasn't at that stage then, but now this was a very emotional experience for him. I don't have pictures of the actual flag pinning ceremony for Don, but we did visit him on the Marine Corps birthday. And, he said, I remember the 176th Marine Corps birthday. And so, it's important to us. And like you're saying, it comes full circle, all of us working together to support for the exact same reason, to honor and serve. And for me, it's to serve those who came before and paved the way for my generation. And so this is important. And to see his face light up, because he hasn't been able to go to a Band of Brothers meeting, or, the Marine Corps League or the VFW. He hasn't been able to go in a very long time. And to just be able to do this, and then do his flag pinning ceremony that he wasn't expecting, was very special to me, to his wife, to our nurse and our social worker who were present as well. And it's part of our mission. It really is. It's part of our mission. And I do have some pictures, from one that, again, we did get the family's approval to share. But this, you can see, this is where we've got the Band of Brothers flag line, participating with a gentleman who, he was asleep. I don't think he really knew we were there, but his family was there, his friends were there, and it was extraordinarily important to honor him. I mean, sometimes it's not just for the veteran, but it's also for the family. And I know Don and I have walked in together, to hospice patients, and we've gotten a call and run over there in, the next hour to be able to honor someone. And we give up everything that we're doing to be able to do that. And he continues, you continue to do that as well. And it's, we've seen the almost sense of the relief, and the sense of calm come over a loved one, and the emotion too that's tied to it. And it's very small. It's a very small flag pin that we pin on the hospice patient and veteran. And we have a challenge coin that we give as well. And then we read a certificate and just thank them for their commitment to service of our nation. And to us, it's incredibly important to do this in that stages, the supporting all stages of end of life. And again, we don't want to leave anyone out, and we don't want anyone to be in isolation. And we're here, and that's why, the Band of Brothers, it's very important for them to be able to do this as well. And I know Don and his honor guard, not only do they do these flag painting ceremonies with us, and in the community for hospice patients, but they also do one of the most important final aspects as well.
Yeah, so again, as I said in my intro, so we do most of the military honors in the Redmond area, and some of them in Bend. Actually, we'll go anywhere we're asked to go, put it that way. So we've gone to Warm Springs and done them up there also. So it is that end of life, but it's an important aspect to honor the veterans once they have fallen and are being laid to rest. And it's also important for their family to have that sense of their military service and how much they're still our brother and sister, no matter if we knew them or not or what, because once you serve, you're our brother and sister. So it's important to do that on the honor guard. So I have a great group of volunteers that we have, and we go out and say whenever we're needed, not only for military honors, but pinnings and taps and anything else we can do. So Maureen just knows she just has to ask and we'll be there. So
I have a question for you both. So as a civilian myself, I can see and feel the power of these services. But I'm so far out of the loop, and it's a mystery to me. And how would I go about getting my loved one connected to these resources?
So the first layer kind of is in most communities is there's usually a VFW post, American Legion post, a Band of Brothers, possibly. Those are the kind of the veteran organizations that populate a community, and we all talk to each other. And and there's other aspects. I used to be the manager of the food pantry for St. Vincent de Paul, and I made it a point When people came in, one of the things on the form was they would designate that they were a veteran, and I would go meet every one of them that came in to get food to find out what their situation was, what do you need, how can I help you, etc. So, and then from there we have veteran service officers in the American Legion and the VFW who take care of the kind of local stuff. So when you have a veteran come in, maybe has a food issue, could be shelter, could be a car broken down, whatever it is, transportation. We get them connected with them and they can help them and then pass them along to them and they can help them through that aspect. And then there's a county veteran service officer who's more connected with the VA and as you get deeper into it. So they can, again, get that person, that veteran to the right person, to the right resources to help them with whatever it is that they need. So that's kind of where we start at the lower level and build up towards the county veteran service officer.
And for us, if you do have a loved one or a friend who has a life-limiting illness, who may need that extra layer of medical support as well, and extra resources in the community, I would say, contacting Partners in Care would be a really good way to start. Between myself, I'm always willing to talk to anyone if they don't know where to turn, and always trying to be kind of that connecting file between a lot of the different cities and communities and those organizations that Don is discussing, and in particular with the VA, and then our own veteran service officers within the county levels, not the ones at the VFW or Legion, but the ones at the county level that is support for benefits and things like that. And so I would say just call, go out and connect them. Someone like Don, someone like myself would always be willing to help.
Yeah, because I'll be honest, all of these services you're describing, it's hard for me to differentiate. And then I know that there's a VA health system as well, and that's a completely separate system than our regular medical system. Is that right? Can you talk a little bit
It is.
about that?
It is, yeah. And we have our own outpatient clinic. It's called the Community-Based Outpatient Clinic, or CBOC, here in Bend. I attend them. A lot of local veterans go there as well for healthcare. I'm sure we all have different experiences, but in my role, I work as a liaison. If someone can't figure out how to get through to a primary care provider, or find a social worker to ask a question to, or even just get someone on the phone, I work often as a liaison with someone with a life-limiting illness that we're serving or in the community who may need to get in touch with the VA clinic. And there's obviously the Portland healthcare system, of which our clinic is under. But I will say that navigating the VA healthcare system is challenging. And if it's challenging at my age, I'm sure it's challenging for a lot of our older veterans. And that's why I'll say that we are here to support and help them navigate and be kind of those resource navigators for the community, for our veterans who do have serious illnesses.
And again, just on the call, Maureen is age of my younger daughter, so we have quite a span of veteran coverage right here on the call between Maureen and myself. So it's
yes, absolutely. Joelle, I did see a question. There were a couple questions. Don, I do see that you answered them.
I did.
Wonderful.
There are questions about the process of application for honor flight.
Right.
Can you describe that?
So again, you can go to honorflightofcentraloregon.org and fill out an application right now. We're taking applications for September of 2023. And then once that's filled up, because we catalog them on a first come, first served basis, so you can put it in right now and you go into file to go on the 2023 flight till we fill up. And then we start rolling those over into 2024. So you can actually put in an application right now for a veteran, or if you want to be a guardian pays their own way. It's $1,500 for 4 days in Washington, D.C., which isn't bad. Covers everything. It's all inclusive. So, and the job of the guardian is to help the veterans that need help. So if the veteran is wheelchair bound or sometimes walks with a cane or whatever, to go to all these memorials, we cover sometimes 6 and 7 miles in a day. So we have them, we take a wheelchair for every veteran so they can sit down and enjoy the rides, like taking an Uber from memorial to memorial. So that's what the guardians do. They unload the luggage, they load the luggage, they unload the wheelchairs, they load the wheelchairs, all that kind of stuff. So the veteran is just there to enjoy the trip. That's all we want them to do, is focus on the trip. So that you can put in for that anytime by going to our website. And then again, if we get an application where we might have a medical issue or something where we think they may need to go in 2023, they can't wait to 2024. A lot of times we will just take extra veterans. We can go up to about 40 before we start getting squeezed. We try to take 30 to 35 and hold some seats open. So maybe we might take one less guardian, or one of us team leads might stay home so that a veteran can go. So it's we just play that by ear depending on what comes in for that particular year. But yes, you can put in, I encourage put in your application right now, because it's first come, first served.
Okay, great. So when it comes to funding, because you're as a nonprofit, where do you use those funds?
Okay, so we get no funds other than donations from the community or from individuals. So I do a lot of the fundraising. So we do local businesses, grants. I write some grants and try to get grant money from different businesses, and then a lot of individuals who have heard about us or have gone on an honor flight. A lot of their families donate so that someone else can go on an honor flight. So again, we fundraise to pay for all the veterans can go free, and then the guardians pay their own way. And then again, the staff, we go every year and we take a doctor and as part of the staff, so that we have all medical services the whole time also. So it's all donations from the community. We go from La Pine to Warm Springs and knock on doors. We've had the same doctor now for 7 years, and she's just retiring, and she's also a private pilot. So they're going to Texas, and she's going to do more playing on her airplane and all that kind of stuff. But she already found her replacement, and so we'll have a different doctor, but she's already recruited her own replacement for us. So that was very
That's
good.
Convenient. Well, excellent. Anything else that you want to share with us before we wrap up?
Let's see.
From me, I would say that, no matter what, if you have a loved one or a friend or a neighbor who you think could use connections in the community from some of these veterans organizations, reach out. Band of Brothers will go and visit. I can help set something up and get people out there, especially if it's someone who has a life-limiting illness or a medical condition where they really cannot leave their home or the facility. And so, we're willing to help, and that's what we do. No matter what branch of service you were, no matter where you served, when you served. What's special about this community is that we'll all come together and step up to support one another. And I'll say that if you are concerned about someone and someone needs help, reach out. Contact me at Partners in Care, contact your local Band of Brothers, VFW, American Legion. Someone will be there to help.
That's amazing. And so you were saying that you work closely with the Partners in Care Transitions program, which I'm familiar with, which is a free non-clinical case management program. And so they can also help with veteran services?
They absolutely can. We serve right now, our transitions coordinators, of which I believe we have
5.
Five. We have 5. They each serve almost 100 transitions clients in different communities. They're each assigned to different cities and geographic areas, and they do serve veterans. They do serve quite a few veterans, and in their role as well, I will work with them and liaise with them. They're the kind of eyes and ears in the community that they're serving, to be able to get these veterans connected with the VA clinic, the veteran service officers, different resources and things, because if there's a veteran who isn't connected for benefits, the time to do it is not on hospice. The time to do it is, as soon as possible. And especially if there's been diagnoses of certain medical conditions that can be tied to military service in particular. And so
Mm.
our team members help people navigate through those resources and things like that so that they aren't having to do it alone.
Yes, that makes sense.
And I can echo to that in that the more we partner with like with Maureen and I and other organizations, I don't have to know all the answers. I just have to know who to go to.
Right.
So that makes it a whole lot easier when we have these partnerships, because when someone comes to you with a problem or whatever, you can get them started down the right path.
Fantastic. Because I hear all of these programs that are kind of one-off, because I'm not in the veteran community. I hear about rides from Cascade East Transit for veterans, and I hear about Covo doing some fundraisers, and then there's a resource fair, and so it's good to know that there are folks who do connect all of those resources together. That's great. That's good to know.
Absolutely.
Well,
Absolutely.
thank you everyone for attending today. You will be receiving a follow-up email. So Dawn and Maureen, if you have anything that you'd like me to include for our attendees for Monday, please do so, including your contact information, because I've found that in particular for these more personal kind of scenarios, people will often, they want to share their personal story, and it's harder to talk about it in general terms. So if you're comfortable with that, we would love to have you available for that. So with that, I will wish you a fantastic, warm, sunny weekend, and hope to see you all soon.
Thank
for
you.
having
Thanks,
me.
everyone. Thanks, Joel.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Joe.